Alrighty, hello and welcome back to episode 37 of Upper Creek with Two Paddles. We are in the same exact spot that we were last week because it is 15 minutes later for us.
Yeah, in case you didn't know, I'm Blake.
I'm Austin. Today we're going to try to avoid, we're gonna try to keep it silly. I went on a rant about 30 minutes ago, aka last week, and I needed to get that out of my system. We're good now. We're just going to be silly. It is another week of the podcast, so I should reiterate. We now have an email address if you want to write into the show, if you want to give us corrections, suggestions, topics to talk about. If you want to send hate mail to us, we'll respond to it.
Please allow us our time because we are very busy.
If you're a small business in the area and you'd like us to shout you out, hit us up at Up a Creek.
Only if you got good shit, though.
A good product at a reasonable price. Anyway, the email is upacreek@thepaddlepod.com. That's upacreek@thepaddlepod.com. Write into us if you want to give us a piece of your mind.
Dude, so if you could pick a sponsor right now, like a local business, like in the upstate, who would you?
I don't know. That's a great start to the episode, but sure. Probably that damn farm in Newberry.
Yeah,
that'd be a good one, dude. Shout them out.
Dude, man, I've been getting my beef, man, because let me tell you, one thing people talk about the environment and all that shit and how your food is it environmentally friendly or whatever the fuck. One of the biggest contributing factors in that is how far it has to travel to get to you.
Yeah, that's a big factor.
So one issue I have is that like a lot of our grass-fed beef in the United States in grocery stores comes from other countries. You know, Brazil, Argentina. Those are two big ones.
And that's so much more significant of an impact on the environment than the cow itself farting out methane.
Absolutely. Not only that, anyway, that's a big thing. And also I look for the quality in the product. Like I know how much better and nutrient dense the grass-fed a pasture raised cow is so much more healthy and has so much more of a diverse spectrum of nutrients than does one that grows up in an indoor feedlot. So that's one thing that I'm really big on is trying to get, because, you know, if I have better food, I have to spend less on it because it's going to do more for my body.
Right.
I'm not going to need as much. That's why you eat a whole, 15,000 calories from McDonald's like it's nothing. You're like, that doesn't even feel like a lot.
Because there's no nutrients.
No nutrients at all.
That's a good point too.
So I really have, and beef is something that I live on it. It literally feeds me so much, and I rely on it a lot. So I know that's going to be something that I want constantly. So I started looking for someone in the area that could provide a product that I was looking for, and I came upon this company called Highbrow Beef. And I stumbled upon them because I was looking for some grass-fed liver, which I'm too big of a pussy to eat. And I found this guy's website because I was looking for grass-fed liver, and I was like, Newberry, South Carolina? Like, what the fuck? Like, I clicked on their website, and I was like, damn, this is a decent website, And I started reading about their operation. It's literally one guy, one family. They do all the processing, everything right there on their farm. Their cows are raised on a pasture in Newberry. They have multiple kinds of cattle. They have, I think their bread and butter is the American Angus. And then they also have American Wagyu. They have a cow called a South Pole cow, yeah. And they also have, I think those are the three. But anyway, they have a really good price on ground beef, which is what I eat a lot of.
Right.
So they have these boxes you can get monthly, and I get 12 pounds of ground beef every month for $60 with a local discount. If you pick it up locally, you get a 15% discount.
Right.
And man, I have not bought any ground beef from the store since I started doing that, and that was like 5 months ago.
Yeah, that's a pound for $5. A pound of pasture-raised, grass-fed, local beef
that didn't have to travel no fucking where.
for as cheap as the cheapest pound of beef you can get at Walmart.
So, dude, what you want is out there. And like you said,
you just got to search for it.
I would love that. I mean, I would 100% if they wanted to do an ad. I'd so down because I really like this dude. His product is amazing.
And
they
like
have every cut you want, and their beef is so good.
Yeah, and we're more than we're shouting them out right now for free. Like, we're more than happy to just support local. You know, fuck any money right now. It's just like, hey, like we want to shout out good people that we like who want to support. And
they ship all over the East Coast frozen, but they're prioritizing their local customer by giving them a discount.
The discount, yeah.
They're literally prioritizing a local market with a discount. So go show them some love. Their cuts they're a little bit more expensive than the supermarket, but the grass-fed beef box is an exception. That's why I get it every month.
That's really cool.
You know what I'm saying? But if you want to buy, cuts of beef, they have every kind you want. They'll be a little bit pricier, but if you're going to pick them up in Newberry, use their discount code. They put it right there on the website, and you will not be sorry.
Highbrow Beef, Newberry, South Carolina. Check them out. Support local.
That'd be a good one for sure.
That's awesome. We'll move on. I got a little talking point that I think is funny that I was... I don't know how often you use public restrooms.
Enough. My work basically is a public restroom. So.
Oh yeah, we have talked about that on the pod. I was taking a dump at Lowe's, and somebody, I didn't see them, but I assumed they were middle aged. I assumed they were overweight because I'm an asshole and I make assumptions. And they sat down in the stall beside me, and all I hear is, can we? This bothers the hell out of me. This is a huge pet peeve that I have realized I have.
You've got to get. You can't help the sounds you make in the bathroom.
You can. Yes, you can. Why
the sound of the shit coming out of your ass?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about moaning and groaning. You are a grown man moaning in relief in a public Stop it. Stop it. I don't. It is the most disgusting fucking thing to be in a stall and hear.
What if they're jacking off, dude?
Oh my God. It's disgusting. I hate it. I'm like, I hope to God I'm not making that noise. But I'm aware. I'm like, I'm definitely not moaning.
I try very hard not to make any noise.
Dude, these people don't give a fuck. They are letting it fly, dude. It is crazy. Also, to piggyback on that, just breathing heavy.
Is that me right now? Like,
no, but just like when you're like, oh my God, I don't know. Like,
you're just breathing into the mic. I bet I do that.
I know I'm an asshole, but there's just, dude, just control your moans when you're shitting in public. Is that much to ask? Just please.
That's fair. That's fair.
I feel like that's fair.
At least put it out there. I mean,
come on, just please. Let's make an effort. You're making me uncomfortable in the restroom. I do not appreciate it.
Oh my God. Dude.
It happens so often. It happens like every time I come up with a crazy thing like this. You're like, dude, but how often? Every time. At least 60% of the time I go shit in Lowe's, there's somebody moaning.
Doesn't it suck that usually my one shit of the day just right during work hours?
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst.
Isn't that like everybody, like that after that morning coffee hits you right at work? You know what I mean? Everybody's shitting at the same time.
Usually I can avoid it, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you got to go.
If you can shit before you leave the house, it's amazing. I mean, let's be real here. If you can somehow manage to be ready to shit before you take a shower,
yeah.
That's fucking incredible. How often does that happen to you? It's like, damn it, I just took a shower, now I have to shit. You know what I mean? But like those rare days where you get up and you just get that shit out before you shower. Like it's so, maybe that's why it's such a great thing, because it happens so rarely. Maybe if you got up earlier, it would happen.
I completely agree. You are right. Yeah, you need to, because I don't have to be at work at a certain time. So I'll get up. I'll have 2 cups of coffee before I even thinking about showering.
But you are
so I got time to shit.
Aren't you incentivized to get there?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Like, don't you make like a little bit more or something?
Yeah, I can get a like 5% bump in commission if there's not enough work there in general. If it's a full day's work, I'm gonna hit my 50% commission mark regardless. And the way I've started to look at it is that 5% commission at most is going to be $5 or $6 that day. I'd pay $5 or $6 to sleep in.
That's true.
Yeah, so yeah, I've stopped worrying about that at all. But anyway, my point is, I can wake up, drink coffee, chill, and just shit, and be in no rush.
See, I usually don't have that luxury.
That's why you usually got to get up earlier, like you're saying.
I have to be at work at 8:30. I'm hitting the interstate at 8:15, and it's fucking deadlocked. I'm like, fuck.
Dude, I hit 5 yellow lights on my way to work yesterday.
How much of
Cruised under 5 yellow lights in a row. In a row on Bowling Springs Highway. I hit one. I was like, damn, that was close. Next one, like, shit, I'm on the line. And I kept going. I was like, dude, I timed it perfect. I hit every yellow light with enough time to get through it. I was like, I don't know. Something just happened this morning.
Oh,
it was crazy. It was it worked so perfectly.
Ooh. That feels good.
It felt great. I was like, and again, I'm not in a rush on my way to work, but just know, but like, damn.
Doesn't it always?
Yellow lights in a row?
Always happens when you're not in a rush. When you're when you're like just cool as a cucumbber,
when
like driving somewhere, you're just hitting every green light.
And then you're in a rush.
As soon as you're in a rush, you're like, fuck!
Bumper to bumper.
You're just like, Jesus Christ, can't handle it. Yeah.
Oh,
isn't that how? Why is it? Why?
Because
I think God's fucking with us.
You
dude.
manifest the stress.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I know you hate that word. That's why I use it.
But it's funny. Like if you're not in a rush, you're not gonna rush to the red light.
Yeah. That's
You know, like if I know it's a red light, I'll just be like,
yeah, you're just cruising.
I might hit the green light. You know, I might never have to stop.
You might slow down. You're so leisurely driving. You see the red light, you slow down, and by the time you even get to the car waiting, it's green again. It's like
you never even had to stop. So listen, people.
Me and Blake should be
take it easy. Just take it easy.
Me and Blake should be the traffic coordinators for the U.S.
That's what I miss my passion, dude. I should have gone into fucking road designing, road engineering.
Oh man, I really do want to go back to school for engineering.
That'd be dope.
I really do want to go to like SEC, free tuition.
That'd be cool.
God, dude, I'm already like lazy. I'm talking about being too lazy to take an hour and a half to edit 7 clips for the podcast.
Yeah, but that would be
that'd be motivating. It's my whole future.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean that potentially is too.
It's true.
All right, we've exhausted that. I don't want to go back to talking about shitting. So I had what I guess I can only call a high thought.
Okay.
But I think it was very interesting. But every time I bring up a high thought that I thought was very interesting, you look at me like I'm a retard. So
yeah. Same. I mean, no worries.
All right. So
happens to me all the time.
Our current mode of technology is based. Hear me out. Our current mode of maybe that edible's kicking in a little bit. Our current mode of technology is based almost entirely on electromagnetic radiation spectrum. Everything's electricity. Sure. Like we've talked about how potentially in a past civilization,
it's waves in the air.
We talked about how potentially in a past civilization maybe they had better.
They use sound waves.
Sound waves. Maybe there was some sort of gravitational propulsion stuff. Just all these other options for harnessing energy and utilizing that energy.
Right. Well, not only that, but transmitting it.
Well, I had the thought, our bodies use the electromagnetic radiation spectrum to communicate from our brain to our muscles. We're sending electricity from our brains to our muscles to tell them to move. Our bodies are
electrochemical.
Well, either way, our bodies are like an electric system.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes.
So I wonder if that has influenced the reason we have went down the path of harnessing electromagnetism. Because and that made me call into question potential paths of gravitational technology. It's like maybe it actually is the most logical that we chased electricity because that's how our bodies function. That maybe we had some innate understanding and ability to harness it.
I'm still not convinced that we haven't barked up the totally wrong fucking tree.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
You know what I'm saying? Just like you were talking about sound and gravity, it could be that the electromagnetic spectrum that we're using is harming us, right? Like you always hear about
potentially,
X-rays.
But the reason it harms us is
like
because
don't wear ear pods because they're emitting radio waves.
Right, but the reason that harms us is
or
because
microwaves. Microwaves.
It's interfering with the regular electrochemical processes of our body.
I'm sure it has an effect.
But anyway, I'm not talking about. I'm not going down the path of if we're right or wrong for what we've done.
Okay.
I'm just saying logically as an explanation, it makes a lot of sense that we chose this path and we pursued this path because it's how our bodies function.
Well,
it's how our nervous system functions.
Yeah, it seems like it's obviously faster than sound, and we don't understand gravity enough to do it yet. So I think we're kind of left with.
That's my point. Is the did we have an advantage when developing electromagnetic harnessing technology, however you want to word it? Anything that is used electrically. Did we potentially have an advantage in developing that path because maybe there was some underlying understanding we had of it because it's how our body is, how we evolved in a way. If you want to get really metaphysical about it.
I don't know. I'm not following you with that one. Like, I'm not following. I don't know. I'm just not quite following.
I don't know. Like, obviously, when you look at the path, it makes sense in a lot of other ways as well. But I just had the thought, like,
what other direction would we have gone in? Is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yeah.
And why did we choose not to utilize?
Well, I don't necessarily think we chose it.
But like, if we're playing around with the idea that harmonics were used to build the pyramids, maybe harmonics are more...
Resonance is a better term.
Harmonic resonance?
Harmonics specifically refers to the relationship of frequencies.
Right.
Resonance refers to the frequency at which an object resonates. Mm-hmm. Everything has a resonant frequency. Like this can has that's why we've talked about this. That's why a wine glass explodes.
So do you think the aliens built the pyramids?
I don't fucking know.
I wish they did.
I like the idea that the pyramids were a ginormous road sign in the galaxy for the aliens. I like that idea.
This spot's cool.
But that doesn't make me believe it or discount it.
This spot's cool and we can make power here.
Right.
I like that idea. I love how Hannah's so honest with me. She's like, I'm scared to believe in aliens. Like, I don't want to believe it. I'm scared of them.
I mean, I think we're all a little scared of it.
She's just so honest about it. She's like, I
think we're all definitely, there's a huge part of all of us that's a little scared about what's out there.
There's obviously evil aliens and there's obviously good aliens.
And we're scared of things that are different than us.
Dude, Cat Williams made the craziest point. He was basically like, we have literally left our planet and we're talking about going to Mars. We've stepped on the moon. We're alien creatures. Like, you know what I mean?
Dude, that interview was wild.
It was so wicked, dude.
There were so many times.
He was speaking in code. Like, dude, he was literally trying to speak in code.
Well, because Cat Williams, like, fully is like, the Illuminati is real. If I fuck up, they will kill me.
If I believe anybody is that motherfucker.
Like, but, dude, they were like, that interview was a roller coaster.
It was wild.
Of being like, damn, that's a good point. I haven't thought of that. Oh my God, you're insane.
And I love,
you know what I mean?
You know what I love about Cat Williams? He's been going on these people's podcasts. He talks about what they want to talk about.
I'm so glad Rogan got, after all the bullshit from the Shannon Sharp podcast, I'm so glad Rogan got him on.
Because Shannon Sharp is all about the drama, what's happening in the pop culture. Yeah. You know what I mean? Joe Rogan's like, let's talk about the pyramids and
everything. Yeah, dude, it's wild.
And Cat Williams is there for whatever.
And they didn't. I love
that about him.
I love that they didn't bring up this controversy about him talking shit on comedians.
Those were my like almost idols when I was a teenager.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
Like,
let's talk about
two of my heroes. That was the first, like I said, that was the first stand up that I ever watched was Cat Williams.
That's what I want to talk about. And let's run through our comedic influences, because for me, I think you share this sentiment to a degree. I don't know if you're at the level. Like, I am a diehard fan of comedy. I think comedy is one of the most valuable things in our society today.
Like we were just talking about, the comedic relief, if you can give it to yourself.
I think the comedian counterculture has single-handedly overturned PC culture. Like comics are literally the counterculture to all the bullshit going on in the world. Right. That's why Rogan's the #1 fucking podcast everybody listens. It's a comedian's perspective.
It's like a compass.
Like, I'm such a diehard fan of comedy.
If a comedian is trying to make fun of things that are funny and silly, right? That's what they're trying to do. So when they see something that is silly,
fucked up, yeah,
they're like, "Oh, I know what this is."
I believe Rogan's like, we don't have a filter for bullshit. You're not gonna get bullshit over on a comic. It's like we make a living making fun of everything.
Most of them.
Like, you're not going to pull the wool over the eyes of a comic.
Right.
Because our entire job is to poke holes and find bullshit.
Looks at things with scrutiny.
And it's like...
But there's so many different kinds of comics.
There are different kinds of... But anyway, what I was getting... Like, I'm such a diehard fan of comedy.
You're talking about specifically satirical comedy. Like,
not necessarily.
Which is what Cat Williams is. Cat Williams is famous for his satirical comedy.
That's true.
Like, that is one of his... one of the things that he's good at. He's not one of these comedians that just comes on and, makes fun of himself the whole time, makes fun of his life the whole time.
It's very insightful.
Which is a lot of what comedians do. Like, a lot of really famous comedians, they talk about themselves a lot.
Yeah.
Like Bert Kreischer.
Very insightful.
Bert Kreischer, almost all of his comedy is about talking about himself. Cat Williams...
Dude, I love Bert, but I really don't like him as a comic.
I've listened to his comedy. I've watched his special, a couple of his specials, and it's not my flavor.
Yeah, I've watched all of his specials, and they're funny. I laugh, but
funny.
I'm like, this is not the peak of comedy, and not even close.
His is so much more about the live show.
Yeah.
He's trying to captivate those people to have a good time in that moment.
That's very true.
Like, it might not translate as well to you know what I mean? Something that's not live, which I totally get, and you can't fault them for that.
But no, I want to talk about just like who was the first comics you saw?
Definitely Cat Williams and Joe Rogan, 100%.
I never saw Joe Rogan.
But when you talk about comedy, that goes back to like SpongeBob, homie. You know what I mean?
No, I'm specifically talking stand-up.
Those are the two first that I watched.
I don't think I ever saw a Joe Rogan stand-up until I listened to his podcast. I saw him on Fear Factor, obviously. I grew up watching Fear Factor.
I definitely watched his stand-up before his podcast. Like, because I remember it was on when he had... I think it was maybe like 2008, 2009, like right before they started the podcast, I believe. I watched one of his specials on YouTube, and it was the one that he talks about the giant flying pussy people, because they were I
still don't think I've seen that one.
So like his bit is, if there was a such thing as big dick pills, 100% of men would be on big dick pills, and they would take so many that they would have to push their dick around on shopping carts. And women's pussies would have to grow to accommodate the huge dicks, and it would get to a point where they had a cavity large enough to just glide like a squirrel, like a flying squirrel pussy person, and that was the one that I saw first, and I was like, and he had all sorts of different, I was like 12 at the time, 12, 13, and he had all these, funny sexual jokes on there, and I was like, what in the fuck is this? And then I started getting on YouTube, just watching comedy or whatever, and Cat Williams is one of the first, like, he's one of the...
Cat Williams is definitely one of the first
He
ones
just popped up, and I watched the one, It's Pimpin'. That's the first one I watched. Or, what's the one? Yeah, It's Pimpin'. That's the one. That's the one I watched first. Yep. In Atlanta. The one in Atlanta he did.
Pimp Chronicles, I guess, was the first one I saw.
Right. Pimp Chronicles in Atlanta was the first one I think I saw.
I think. Anyway, like I saw a lot of... I never really saw Joe Rogan. I never saw any of the comics I listen to today, which is crazy. I mean, a lot of them have grown up since we've been of age, or come up since we've been of age.
Right.
Like Mark Norman, even Tom, in a way, has kind of like really taken off since we've been old enough to pay attention to it. But I remember like some of the most formative specials I saw.
Bill Burr.
Mine was always low energy comics.
Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's up there for sure. Oh yeah,
I definitely saw Kevin. Jim Gaffigan was a huge,
and these
huge
are all
one for
the
me.
Mainstream guys.
Yeah,
the only person that
because back in the day that was the only way you know.
Cat Williams was the only underground one that I really.
Well, they all started underground.
No, I mean, I guess did they?
Yeah, everybody started in clubs.
I guess that's true.
Everybody started in clubs. That's why comedians have so much respect for one another. There's
Unless
no
you're
cheat code to it. Comedy actors different. I mean, we're specifically talking about stand-ups. Right. Yeah, I saw like Jim Gaffigan.
Dude, I still want to go on stage at that fucking place. I still do.
Aziz Ansari was one I used to watch a lot. I liked him. Dimitri Martin was a very low energy act, but he was a musical act. But I loved his stuff. I don't think I'd like it today, but as a kid I loved it. Bo Burnham.
Who was the guy with the puppets?
Jeff Dunham. He had a lot of specials on Comedy
Cook. I watched Dane Cook.
I definitely saw Dane Cook.
The one he did in that fucking stadium or the arena. He was like at the center and he had like people surrounding him on a circle.
Dude, but that was
wild, dude.
Yeah, but think about back then, and now that's a common thing. Doing an arena in the round.
Dude, no, so many people are on the stage. Are you sure? Arena on the that's
Joe Rogan said, I mean, I hate to always reference fucking Rogan, but he's like, dude, there's no other way to do an arena.
Except for...
Joe's literally said, like, I will never do a stage on it. It's always in the round. It has to be in the round. It's so much more intimate.
That's wild.
But it's crazy
how do you even get off the stage?
It's like walking a fighter into the ring.
Oh, okay, that's true.
So it's crazy that so many of those specials that we saw as kids were like, this just happened to be on TV. You know, we didn't have Netflix. We didn't have any of that shit. They just happened to be on TV. And
Gabriel Iglesias, dude. So me and you were both like we've watched a lot of different. We're comedy fans. We've grown up watching. Comedy.
It is probably. I mean, I'll take this how you will. I consider myself an artist.
You know who?
I truly consider myself an artist, and I don't think there's any more pure art form. Coming from somebody who makes music, who paints, who draws.
Standing on a stage by yourself.
I don't think there's any more pure art form than stand-up comedy.
It's wild.
But like, it's crazy that was just what happened to be on TV. And now you go to YouTube and it's like Shane put out a special. Dan Soder put out a special. Stavros put out a special. Mark Norman put out a special. Patel, was it Namish?
Yeah.
He got every single person.
The lands are fertile right now.
And you can seek out anything you want. You're like, oh, I like that comedian. Like fucking Ryan Sickler. I don't know if does Tim Dillon have one on YouTube? Anyway, like,
I don't know.
Every good comic.
That dude is a savage.
They're all like, we live in a beautiful time for all of art.
Yeah.
Except visual, modern art, you can go fuck yourself. We live in the worst time for modern art. That's just my personal opinion as somebody who studied art and is a painter.
What's modern art?
Like commentary on current events, and like that's what modern art really is.
But does it have to be around painting? Is it?
No, modern art's anything. Modern art is this dude stacking up fucking like a beautiful example of modern art that I absolutely believe is a beautiful art form is David Cho. He's an awesome artist, and a lot of his concepts and ideas and the way he executes his art are very much modern art techniques. Like what comes to mind is the video he put out where he's in like this giant monkey suit and he's got a wheelchair, and in that wheelchair are 3 barrels of paint. And he pops the lid on the 3 barrels of paint, grabs the wheelchair, and pushes it around the studio. And just the trail of paint that left and the entire performance of that is the art piece. That's modern art. And, I mean, it gets wild. Like, you see clips of this dude he got 10 buckets of sand stacked up and he pushes them over. And that's modern art. Modern art sucks in so many ways, but there's so many, like, I don't want to discount the people who are doing it beautifully. Like,
have you seen the guys who that roll glass bottles off of stuff and they crack on things?
Yeah.
Have you seen that? It's so satisfying.
It's technically modern art.
So satisfying. I love watching them.
But no, we live in such a beautiful time for expression and freedom of speech, and even within all the bullshit we discussed last week, we live in such a beautiful time to express yourself and make like amazing art. There's so many talented thinkers. I don't even care about talented painters, drawers, music. No, talented thinkers. People are coming up with some ideas and you see it, you're like, how did you come up with that? And it's so inspiring to me. And that's like the guy with the soccer ball. Yes. And like
that's modern art.
Exactly. That is absolutely modern art. And like it's just so beautiful that we live in a time.
You know it when you see it.
Yes.
If you can point it out, like that is amazing.
I
piece
believe
of modern art.
A lot of people say that is the definition of art in general. You know it when you see it.
Like God.
Well, I'm of the persuasion that everything's art. That fucking refrigerator's art. Somebody designed that thing.
Sure.
If all you needed was an icebox to keep your fridge.
Where's the line between engineering and art?
I don't necessarily think there is one.
Can I alleviate my bladder?
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I think maybe engineering is with a specific performance in mind.
It's practical.
Right, but some art can be practical too. Like,
well, yeah, there's functional art pieces.
Right, but yeah, not necessarily modern art. Right,
No.
but yeah, no. Yeah, but engineering is always focused on a particular goal in mind.
Right.
Designed around not an idea or an ideal or a creative intuition, but based on a specific
necessity.
Necessity is a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, I think but engineering is so cool to me. Like I was watching a video today. I'm about to go off on a wild tangent, but we're done with talking points, so we're off the reins now.
Okay.
I was watching a video about the Oroville Dam in Northern California. If you saw the video, you would remember seeing this on the news. In 2017, the spillway in this dam collapsed. It was catastrophic. This is the tallest dam in the U.S., and it is one of the largest spillways on the planet. And there was a catastrophic failure of this spillway. 200,000 residents were ordered to evacuate, and they immediately started to rebuild because literally the next flood season was 6 months away. And this is the tallest dam in the country. And they had to fix it. They spent over $1 billion fixing this. And what I took away from it is it's crazy how much progress we can make when you have the right people doing the right job.
And the necessities are there.
So, for instance,
like we have to keep these 20,000 people or
200,000
people from losing their homes.
And so they immediately upon the disaster, upon the collapse of the spillway, dude, you see an excavator in this spillway, it looks like a toy on a piece of paper. That's how big this fucking spillway is. It passes, I don't remember the gallon per second flow or whatever, but they said that at average capacity, at the average capacity of displacement when they're trying to, use the spillway to drain water from the reservoir, it would fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool in 2 seconds. This is a massive thing, all right?
This is wild.
And it was absolutely necessary that it be fixed immediately because literally flood season's 6 months away. This was over $1 billion project. And the cooperation on this project was beautiful. So immediately they had engineers on site assessing why the disaster happened. They immediately had industrial designers come in and begin formulating plans to within the first week of the collapse. So they've flown in a team of the best engineers, the best designers. They've got the government regulators on hand. They've got the operators of the dam. Everybody's working in cooperation.
That's the beauty of being a contractor.
The engineers are explaining why this catastrophe happened to the designers. The designers are immediately turning around with a design on how to fix it. The engineers are immediately reviewing the design, literally sitting side by side, like working in the same office on site. And then as soon as the engineers revise the designs given to them by the designers, the regulators from the government are there to say, all right, that works. We can do that. And they went through 3 different plans. They decided on the best plan, which is to reinforce the dirt underneath the spillway and rebuild instead of doing an elevated spillway or they thought about using the erosion from the collapse to channel that into the new spillway. They found out the best option was to rebuild the spillway as it was, just better, without the force. And this dam has been in place since '69.
Okay.
This dam's been operational for 50 years. This is the first thing the first problem they've had. But what's crazy is there's an emergency spillway and the regular spillway. I know this is a long explanation, but I've got a point at the end of it. The emergency spillway, they let it overflow to take pressure off of the damaged spillway, the main spillway. They immediately realized if they kept letting the water run from the emergency spillway, it would very quickly, the erosion would creep back to the dam and cause catastrophic failure of the actual dam. The actual earthen mound that was holding back the reservoir would collapse if they didn't stop the emergency spillway from overflowing.
Because of the erosion created.
Yes. So they made the decision to put the main spillway back to full flow, knowing that it was still damaged and they were going to cause more corrosion, but it wouldn't put the integrity of the dam itself in jeopardy. So they made that decision. They did that, and then they dropped the water level of the reservoir by 50 feet, using the damaged spillway just to ensure that if rain continued to happen, because it was still raining at this point. This was 2017, one of the wettest winters California's ever seen. I don't know about now, but back then, obviously, they've gotten a lot more rain in the past few years. And I mean, the cooperation between the regulators, the operators, the designers, the engineers, the people on the ground, the machine workers, every single person, the people who are boring into the ground to do soil samples to make sure that everything's going to support this new structure. All of those people were working in cooperation, and this $1 billion construction project was completed in under 2 years, or right around 2 years. So you had the most qualified people with a set goal in mind. Urgency was huge priority. It was as urgent as it could be, and they got the job done effectively and efficiently. Now, there's a certain institution in this nation that needs that level of cooperation. We need the best of the best put on the problems we have. We need that, we need those minds to help fix our government. That's the level of cooperation. That's the level of understanding. That's the level of, this is the necessity. This is the goal we need to work toward. Let's put all of our best minds on this goal. And it just put...
What's our vision? Because right now we have the urgency, but we have no vision.
That's true. That's true. But that's because everybody's fighting for their own vision.
I think I have a decent vision.
There's no unified vision within the government itself. And that's one of the biggest problems with the bipartisan thing we have going on. Everybody's fighting against the nitpicky bullshit, and we all agree on the underlying goal. We pretty much all know that we want less crime, we want more employment, we want better infrastructure, we want more jobs. Like, all of this is a pretty obvious goal. We want, but the nitpicky is the tiny little disagreements are what keeps the main goal from getting focused on. Like, oh, Blake, you know your company doesn't employ enough Hispanic people. It's like, I have the most qualified people to do the job. Like, I don't. It just kind of like the level of cooperation and the level of not aptitude, yeah.
No, you're right. We have to be motivated by specific issues.
Well, it's just so beautiful that when we need to make something happen, we can do it.
Right.
But then when it comes to the most important fucking thing, they don't want the best minds on it because they want it to keep being the way it is. The people in control want to keep fucking keeping their pockets fat. They don't want to put the best people on the problems because the worse people they have on the problems, the more they can get away with at the detriment to us.
It's also it's heavy in nepotism and all that shit too.
I don't know. Again, I didn't want to get serious, and that's not political. I don't think that's political at all. I mean, I'm not talking about one party or the other. I'm not talking about the specifics of what we're arguing about. I'm just speaking on the fact that we obviously need to do something, and we're not putting the best and brightest and most capable people on the job that needs to be done.
I think we're like a lot of our issues, like you said, is we're not unified in what we can identify as the problem.
Right.
That's hard to do. Like we have to identify what the real issues are. And like we were doing earlier, like what are the real issues for?
That's a great point.
Like earlier we were talking about, how we relate to each other, and then, all that's like, well, I say earlier. Last week.
Yeah, last week.
But yeah, we need to do better at identifying real problems.
Right.
Like you're saying, we can't get hung up on this silly shit that really is not a danger to anybody. We have to focus on what are our real problems? Like
the real problems are our infrastructure in this city are crumbling.
Yeah.
The real problems are unemployment is ridiculous right now. Inflation is running rampant.
The border
is as fucking permeable as a damn fishing net. It's like, what? It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, we have a lot of issues.
The steps we need to take are pretty obvious.
Our cities are getting old and decrepit.
But all right, so on the border,
not all of them, but some of them.
On the Border Patrol, we want the best and brightest and most capable people to do what they can do. All right. Well, if you go to Texas, go to the Texas border, the Texas agents, and I'm stealing this straight from Rogan. Come at me. Texas agents want to do the right thing. They don't want to harm these people, but they want to get their information, figure out what's going on. They don't want to let them get shipped up to north to most likely be sold into sex slavery. And then the federal agents come down and they say, no, we'll take care of that. We'll give them a green card. We'll give them a few $1,000s. We'll give them shelter. And we'll release them with a court date however many years into the future because our law system's fucked up. It's like, all right, well, let's put the most capable people on that job. The most capable people are the Texas Border Patrol that are not only doing their job correctly, they're even being like kind-hearted about it. They're not trying to be evil.
Because they actually are connected to it.
Yes, exactly. And then our government comes in and says, we got this, and they fuck it up intentionally. This isn't an accident, dude.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's not an accident.
What is their motivation, you think?
Dude, there's a reason that the brightest and most capable people are working for private companies in this country. There's a reason they aren't on government.
What's the motivation for having a super lax border? Is it just?
I don't want to get into that because there's
just
so many conspiratorial ideas that we can get into that.
But is it just
the biggest
for
thing's
an image? The perception of it?
No, I don't even think it has anything to do with perception because most people don't agree with what's going on. I think the biggest debate is, are they trying to get voters? Is the Democratic Party trying to get voters by letting these people in?
They obviously don't need that.
Well, I don't think that doesn't even make sense because you're bringing in people from a repressed country, from a tyrannical government. You think they're going to come vote for more tyranny?
Yeah, but if they hear that, let's say, Biden is granting you amnesty.
Yeah.
Then that probably has an effect. I don't know what they're being told.
But I don't think these people are so bought into our system.
They probably have no knowledge, dude. They don't know.
So if they see somebody on the news spouting bullshit, they're not going to buy into that. I don't think they're going to be like, oh, he's a Democrat, so he's on my side. They're just going to be like, no, that dude's spouting socialism. Fuck him. I just escaped socialism.
Hopefully.
Obviously, hopefully.
I don't think that it...
And it just pulled back up.
I don't know, man.
15 minutes left. I mean, we can cut it any time. We've been going for about 45 minutes at this point, but...
I think a lot of that thinking is theoretical. We really don't know
absolutely. But
what's happening. What those people think, we really don't know.
Back to my initial point. When it comes to the head of the FDA, you think he's the most knowledgeable about food and drug safety in the country?
No, he's an administrator. That's all he is. He is an administrator.
But don't you think that these people should be some of the most knowledgeable about the topics they're literally deciding on legislation about?
The truth is they're not.
They outsource it to experts. There's a bunch of cooperation again, but still But
what has to happen is about 40 people have to agree.
But 39 of those 40 people are getting paid by pharmaceutical companies.
And I don't really know how I know how it happens for us is that a lot of people have to look over it. And a lot of people have to sign off on it, but...
to me, it just seems blatantly obvious that our government is not interested and getting the most knowledgeable and capable people in the positions they need to be in.
There's definitely some complacency going on.
Like, there's a reason the most knowledgeable people about pharmaceuticals probably work at pharmaceutical companies. There's a reason the most knowledgeable people about astrophysics probably work with NASA or SpaceX. Like, the most capable and educated people in their field work for private companies. They're not working for the government.
Right. Bro, NASA's not a private company.
I know. But right now, NASA and SpaceX work together a lot. Most of SpaceX's launches are joint with NASA. But also, people like NASA's not a private company. I agree, but my principle still holds true. Like, how come I don't even know. It's just, it seems very obvious to me that we're intentionally doing this. We're intentionally keeping the brightest minds of our nation in the dark about some of the most important topics.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But now we've resorted back to being all negative and sad about the world, and I don't want to do that. I did start it. I'm sorry. I watched that video this morning about, this beautiful effort to rebuild this dam that threatened the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, and they made it happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's our urgency? Where's the urgency in this nation to make that same happen? Why are we fighting over this dumbest the little things that don't matter? We're fighting over respect.
It's because most people can't wrap their head around actually getting a job done, like rebuilding a dam. So we'd rather focus on things that we can talk about easily.
I do completely agree with you that it's not apples to apples, because this is a necessity. Something happened. It's a right here, look at it. You can see it. This is the problem. Let's fix it.
Right.
It's not like
easy
the
to keep the issue at the border out of the eyes of so many people. Like, because it doesn't directly affect you at the minute, like you are if you're in El Paso or if you're in
South Carolina.
Anywhere.
They're not right. Just because they come through Texas, they don't stay in Texas.
That's true.
They're getting bussed around, dude. It's pretty documented at this point that these kids are getting shipped away from their parents by federal agents. That's pretty documented at this point. Where they go, nobody knows.
What?
Sweatshops, sex slavery. You listen to the episode with Dr. Phil, right?
Yeah.
Go back to when they're talking about that, dude. It's wild. It's literally the federal agents are knowingly releasing these kids into what is most likely going to lead them to some sort of slavery or sex work. Knowingly. Federal agents are letting that happen. And the Texas guards are like, this is wild, but we can't. And Dr. Phil, I don't remember if it was Dr. Phil or Brett Weinstein. They both were talking about the border. I think Weinstein was in Panama, though, not Texas. Dr. Phil was in Texas. But it's like, man, I could be wrong about that too. Either way.
I watched a little clip of Dr. Phil, and he was exaggerating the shit out of what that guy was saying, though. There was a little clip about, I don't even remember what was said, but he grossly exaggerated what the guard was saying. It was some short little clip. I didn't watch the whole thing.
But how do you?
It was a clip of Dr. Phil on his new show talking to a guard on the Mexican-American border. And the guy was like talking about like you're talking about, like, children being pushed across the border. But what Dr. Phil did was so blatantly obvious that he was blowing it to the most extreme aspect of what the guy was saying in that particular clip. I'm not saying what you're saying isn't happening. I'm just saying that, like, Dr. Phil does that shit to make money.
No, I agree with you. And I'll try to take that
with
a grain of salt.
But he is highlighting real issues.
But yeah, it's a serious issue. And regardless of if it's going to sex work or slavery or whatever it may be, why are the federal agents stepping in and allowing these people into the country?
Right. Why are they being detained by the Texas Border Patrol and then released by federal agents?
When, once again, we're punishing petty weed dealers, putting them in prison. In this state, hell yeah, putting them in prison for trying to put bread on the table for their families. Meanwhile, federal agents are willingly not only allowing,
Have you ever seen that movie, The Proposal?
These illegals into the country.
Me and Hannah watched the movie The Proposal the other day, and the movie is about this woman who is Sandra Bullock plays her, but she plays a super like top level New York player, but she's from Canada, and her visa's running out.
All right. And
if she doesn't get her visa renewed, she can't work for the company. And for some reason, she's having a problem with her visa. And this little fucking dweeby little agent, this fucking agent that's supposed to be in charge of green cards is like keeping out this highly productive woman. Right. Out of like New York, and she's having to fake a marriage to even get a green card, and like that's the whole plot of the movie is her being able to stay in New York and work, and she probably makes millions of dollars. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, like you're saying, there's people just being funneled in by the hundreds of thousands a year.
Yes,
it's silly.
Like funneled in, taken. Barely
the numbers really are astounding.
It's wild.
Hundreds of thousands a year.
And they're not trying to help. They're literally intentionally doing the opposite of help. They're allowing more of it instead of trying to stop it. Intentionally, they're allowing more of it instead of trying to stop it. That's well documented from everything I've heard. You know, I'm not down in Texas. I'm not talking to the agents, but from everything I've heard, it seems like they're intentionally making the problem worse.
We should ask Ryan. I should ask Ryan about this because he lives in Austin. I wonder if he's hearing any grumblings from the border.
Oh man, yeah. I didn't want to get all on this downer topic, but it's the fact of the world right now. It's hard not to talk about
the border does scare me, especially with all this terrorist talk.
It's so terrifying.
Like, you never know. Like, it could be Chinese terrorists, Russian terrorists, Middle Eastern terrorists.
Did you realize how easy it would be to black out most of the major cities in this country?
Dude, you know what a scary thing I heard about the balloon that went over?
What?
It was like, releasing virus spores and shit. I heard about that. I was like, what the fuck?
Here's my issue with the balloon.
Is that real?
I don't believe anything they tell us about that balloon.
It's weird. It's just a weird thing. That was like literally shot down after it went across the entire United States. Like literally, it's like what? You shot it down in the ocean after it went across the entire United States.
Wasn't one shot down in like Arizona?
Yeah, there was another one. I think there was two.
So you're telling me you didn't spot it the entire time it was over you let it get hundreds of miles inland before you literally did anything about it?
Yeah,
I don't believe a damn thing they say about those balloons. That makes no sense. Also, China has jets. China has drones.
Why are they sending a fucking balloon over here?
Dude, I do not buy it one bit.
That's like sending a message in a bottle.
That balloon was American.
Across the ocean. That's so weird.
You cannot convince me that balloon was not a U.S. property.
It's weird. But then again, it could have been a Chinese balloon deployed from one of their millions of acres in the United States.
That's a good point. That's
like they literally own millions of acres in the United States.
But like the one on Myrtle Beach, it's like
that was shot down. Yeah, right off the coast.
Did it float over the whole Atlantic?
No, it came.
That one floated over the whole nation.
Yeah, it was supposedly came across. Entered in California.
And we didn't shoot it down in California?
That's what the whole point was.
I know. I'm agreeing with it's like I do not believe a single thing they tell us about those balloons.
Yeah, it's weird. It's super weird.
There's nothing that makes sense about that story.
It was dropping COVID too, probably.
Dude, China has satellites. China has jets. China has drones. China has half the shit we do.
No, we're sending a balloon. We're sending our best balloon over there.
Right, yeah.
It's powered by the wind.
Yes.
We're trying to cut back on our coal usage.
Yeah, sure. Dude, I don't buy a single thing about that
balloon. Trying to be eco-friendly, sending our viruses over to you guys.
There is not a single percent. The only thing that might make a little sense is if it was deployed by somebody in America.
I haven't even heard that hypothesis, but...
Also... it's not going to float over the whole nation.
But it did. Apparently it did.
Yeah. It floated a balloon visible from the ground, remember? Cell phone footage captured this thing from feet on the ground. It was that obvious. People on the ground could see it. There's video footage of people filming from ground level of it when it got shot down. It wasn't hidden.
You had to imagine it interfered with some airspaces, some airfields, right?
So this balloon,
or it's a magic balloon and it just dodges the airfields as it's coming along.
This balloon that was visible from ground level was allowed to float over the nation with the single strongest military on the planet for how long?
It's weird, yeah.
For how long we let a balloon infiltrate the airspace of the most powerful air force on the planet?
That they straight up told us was from China. They
I
said
don't
it was
believe a single word about that balloon. Am I crazy?
That is weird.
Nothing about that story makes sense.
It makes zero logical sense. We still have no explanation for it whatsoever.
It's a U.S. balloon. It was a U.S. balloon.
But why? What was it doing?
Scaring us about China?
Huh.
Bro, send up a weather balloon, say it was from China.
It was a weather balloon, I thought.
It is. It was a weather balloon with like these solar panels connected to it with this device or some bullshit. And, how easy, a lot of the goal is to stir up fear within the American populace. You know how few resources it takes to just let a balloon float for a few days and just say it was China. That cost us about 5 cents. Plus, the cost of shooting it down. And how much fear did we stir up?
But it's not even... I didn't feel fear from the balloon at all.
Well, me and you don't, because we're not idiots.
Yeah. Maybe we should.
I think we should be more scared of what our government's doing. I think we should be way more fearful about what's going on here.
Outside of what we should, Russia and China. Yeah, I agree.
It's wild.
Watch out, kids.
Also, I watched a video that I'm going to send to you, and I want to recommend to anybody. It's on a YouTube channel called Boy Boy. It's 2 Australian kids. They're fucking hilarious. I think they're about our age. They went, Pine Gap military base?
No.
There's a military base in the exact center of Australia. Now, remember, like 95% of the population, 99% of the population in Australia lives on the coast.
Oh, I've looked at the middle of Australia. It's literally like Mars.
It's desolate.
It looks like Mars.
Pine Gap is a military base that is as secretive as Area 51. The existence of it was denied for a very long time. And
it's said to have a similar purpose?
It's CIA, I believe. It's intelligence. It's like it's the farthest away from us we can get. We need as much. And it's a military base that has it's the closest to China we can get.
It's an Australian base?
Yeah. So it's the closest to Asia we can get. Pretty much.
Control, it's not ours.
Yes.
Being clear.
It is our base.
Okay.
This is the crazy part. I'm going to destroy this. So Pine Gap was installed. I've
never even heard of this place.
There's a system. Oh God, I'm going to run out of camera time. There's a system. Australia was a subsidiary of London, of England, of the monarchy. There was a system put in place where the leader of Australia could be dismissed by this, basically just a figurehead of the monarchy that was like this minister of Australia. There was like the president of Australia and then this minister of Australia using the power of the monarchy. There was this crazy rule written that's been in place since the founding of Australia that says the minister has the power at any time for any reason to dismiss the president of Australia. And I may be using the terms wrong. It might not be minister and president, but what I'm saying is true. There's a system put in place, or the system there was a rule that had been existed since the monarchy colonized Australia, saying this: our minister, representative of our monarch, at any point for any reason can overturn the president of Australia, the elected.
I'm following you.
The elected official.
I'm following you.
The minister of the monarchy is not elected.
The minister that represents the monarchy.
Yes, So Pine Gap was installed in Australia. There was a lot of protest from Australians.
That the U.S. was setting up a base.
Yes. And the president of Australia, again, I'm not sure if that's what they call him, The president of Australia at the time said, we're going to shut down that U.S. base. We are no longer going to allow that U.S. base to operate without like cooperation with us, because the Australians have no clue what we do in that base. No clue. The minister, representative of the monarchy, was basically, his pockets were being lined by the U.S. Within, I think, like a month of the president saying that we're going to revoke our agreement about Pine Gap, the minister decided to overturn him.
So
Hold
when
on.
was this? What year was this?
I don't remember. But the first time in Australian history that the minister has used this right to dismiss a president.
We need to know when this was.
Oh God, we're getting late here.
It should be a pretty easy thing to look up. When was the Australian president overthrown by the royal prime minister?
I believe the term is dismissed. Sorry, So in 1975, after a series of dramatic events, including a 1974 double dissolution and budgetary supply crisis,
What the fuck?
the Gough Whitlam-led federal Labor government, the first and only government in Australian history to be dismissed by the Governor General.
The Governor General is
the monarchy, is the representative of the monarchy.
English monarchy.
The English monarchy, the crown, as they say. The only time in Australian history that they ever used their right to overturn or dismiss the man in charge was used after a dispute about Pine Gap and U.S. involvement in Australia.
What the fuck? Do you know the two largest private landowners in the world?
No.
The number one private landowner in the world is the royal family, and they own over 1 billion acres.
And the next is the Catholic Church.
The next is the Vatican,
Yeah.
and they own about 100 million acres.
So let me finish up with Australia, and then we'll bring this episode to a close. Pine Gap is not the only military base in Australia. The U.S. military bases are littered across Australia. This video I was watching, and again, these guys are funny. They're just doing commentary.
And they're Australian.
They're Australian. They literally run a comedy. It's not stand up, but it's satire kind of in a way. But it's also pointing out actual truths and kind of laughing about the absurdity of what the U.S. is doing. They do a lot of videos like this. Like they did a video where they watched George W. Bush's masterclass on just being a good dude, being a great leader. And they just picked holes. They were like, dude, how does he sit at home at night and just paint? And, how does he not losing sleep over the hundreds of thousands of children he murdered? So it's that kind of, it
was for the good of the American people, sir.
Anyway, it's laughing at the absurdity of the American government and their doings. But they said, like, this country, Australia, is littered with U.S. military bases. There's Pine Gap's one. There's another one that's, I believe they said, is even more secretive than Pine Gap. Nobody has a clue. They essentially said Australia as a nation is one giant U.S. military base. Because we have presence all throughout Australia. We have troops on the ground in Australia. And if anything were to pop off in Asia, that's how the U.S. would use Australia.
We have a lot of people in Japan as well.
And, right, but Japan's a tiny little island. Australia's a massive continent that's mostly empty.
Serve different purposes.
Mostly empty.
Yeah.
So basically these guys were just saying, like, it's wild that America has essentially turned Australia into one giant military outpost without any say from the Australian population. They've had zero say in the U.S.'s involvement in Australia.
That's wild.
It's terrifying. Let me look up this video because it's a very specific, and they go into a lot more detail. They actually tried to sneak into Pine Gap. Yeah, it was. So basically, like, the last time somebody tried to sneak into Pine Gap was 20 years ago. Since 20 years ago, they had updated the American, basically, ability to thwart an attack or an invasion or somebody trying to sneak in. And they were talking to a lawyer. And, you know, the two guys trying to sneak in were in conversation with this lawyer who deals with the CIA and international law and all of this. And he basically, they said, we thought it would be funny. We're not going to go into Pine Gap, but we want to go to the gate or the fence and play with our soccer ball and kick it over the gate and say, hey, can we have our soccer ball back? And the lawyer basically said, well, considering they have the right to use deadly and necessary force if suspicious of an attack, if they just happen to think there might be some malicious intent in that soccer ball coming over their fence, they legally have the right to shoot you on the spot. Anyway, the video is called We Snuck Into a CIA Base in the Aussie Outback by a channel called Boy Boy. Go check it out. It made me think, dude. Whoa. It's a 48-minute video, so buckle up. But a lot of it's really slow, but it's fascinating. Just to hear the perspective of U.S. involvement in Australia. It's fascinating. And I'm
sure a lot of other countries feel the same way.
Yeah. I guess that'll wrap it up. That was a fucking awful end of this podcast after trying to be silly for the beginning of it, but it's okay.
Damn, that's heavy.
It's crazy. I don't want to end every podcast the same way, but fucking keep your eyes open.
Look out, kids.
Look out, dude.
Keep your eyes open.
And pay attention to where you get your sources from, because I'm definitely susceptible to reading some shit and just believing it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm admitting that. I'm completely aware that my sources might not be the most bulletproof, but pay attention.
All right. See you next week.
Love you guys.